We can all find our seats, and we're gonna get started with our clinical and career development pro bono initiative. And now we also included our head of our clerkship committee as well, so that those of you who have clerkship questions can submit your questions. As a brief reminder, if you can field your questions to the Slido, it does make things a little bit easier, and we're able to capture the questions a little bit better. So let me just briefly introduce who we have on our panel this morning. To my left, we have Linda Smith. She is by far our most senior member on this panel today. And I mean that respectfully. I mean that with her involvement with the College of Law. She's been here for over 30 years, and she is a professor of law here. But in addition to that, she basically is the chief architect to our clinical program. To her left, we have Stefan Thomas. And Stefan is 2L, which is a second-year student, but he is here in his pro bono initiative capacity today, and so he is the fellow for our pro bono initiative. He also, before coming to the law school, did participate with our pro bono initiative in translation capacity for a good amount of time. And to his left, we have Professor Louisa Heine. So some of you will have her in the event that you decide to come here. She teaches evidence, judicial process, legal writing. Those are her areas of expertise. In addition to that, she does support our academic support program, and as I indicated earlier, she is the head of our clerkship committee. And to her left, we have Jacqueline Howell, our Associate Director for Career Development. She has been in supporting our Career Development Office for over 10 years now, and she is also actually, I might embarrass her by saying this, but she is actually also completing our Masters of Legal Studies program. She is actually in the initial cohort. So please, I will let them give a little bit more information about what their offices do and how they support our school. And then if you can start submitting your questions, and we'll start filtering those out. Professor Smith, start.
Okay, can I stand up? Hi, welcome, intrepid travelers. So we just wanted to make sure you got some view of the greatest snow on Earth, which is really wet today, not supposed to be wet. Is this working? Am I? Yeah, okay. So our clinical program is a very extensive clinical program. I didn't know comparatively how extensive it was until National Jurist, one of these magazines targeted to you and to law students, started publishing data. And a few years ago, they said our students did more clinical hours than anyone else in the country except Yale, which is like, whoa, that was impressive. And we continually get an A grades and one of the best places for practical learning. Some of this is due to the happy fact that we're in the capital city of a state. So we have our governmental offices that we partner with, and many of our graduates and the local bar who are very cooperative. So our clinical program is predominantly extern-based, meaning students do their clinical work out there with the lawyers that exist in nonprofit organizations like Utah Legal Services, Legal Aid Society, Disability Law Center, Holy Cross Ministries, the Guardian Ad Litem's office. I could go on and on. That's about half of the offices where students learn interactive skills with clients, how to interview, counsel, advocate for them. We also have a criminal clinic where students are interning at Salt Lake Legal Defenders or at the district attorney's office or a city attorney's office or the juvenile defender's office, or I could go on. And there they're learning how to be a trial attorney in the criminal setting, how to do their cases from beginning to end, stand up, do their own jury trials or bench trials. And then we have an extensive judicial clinic where students do internships with any judge in this area, or we can actually work it out for you to do something with a judge in a different area. Anybody that wants to do a judicial internship can. We've increasingly found that students that want to clerk post-law school often end up getting hired by the judge they did their internship with. Because although the judges don't look at this as a chance to check out a future intern, oftentimes they are quite impressed with the student as an intern, and that's the person they choose as their post-law school clerk. We have many other sort of more specialty clinics. We have a new ventures clinic that looks at what do you need to know to develop a new business in terms of the legal rights, like say to the patents, and the business plans. Our health law clinic is something that's excellent for those of you that are interested in health law. Environmental, we have a specialty in environmental law, and we have an opportunity to do internships with environmental nonprofits and governmental offices locally, and also if you've taken the right prerequisites, we could send you someplace else. I'm just approving somebody going to, I think, Denver to work for the EPA this summer. So we really work with you and get you out there. We do have in-house clinics where you get to work hand in glove with a faculty member. Jency Anderson, who was here talking about the legal writing program, is also the director of the Rocky Mountain Innocence Center Clinic. So she does the Innocence Clinic, which is a really popular clinic, and you prove certain people are actually innocent and they get released from prison. That's very satisfying. But big cases, and another way to learn a little bit about criminal law. We have a low-income taxpayers clinic where we represent low and moderate income people who have a dispute with the IRS. I think last year we saved $154,000 for our clients, which is pretty good because we've only run this clinic now for a little over 2 years. We're going to have a new clinical program director, and we're going to have a public policy clinic that will be starting next spring. So don't tell the world that yet because the public announcement has not been made. So anyway, all the clinical placements or any of the clinical experiences where you're doing live lawyering work also have a class to prepare you for that work. So you aren't, what do I do with a client? And to help you reflect upon and maximize your learning from that work. So our students have found the clinical program really an excellent part of their legal education here. Surveys of our alums have shown us that that's highly valued, perhaps the most highly valued thing. And just, you can do clinical experiences every semester of your second and third year if you want. You can do this and that and the other, mix and match. It's all for credit. Some of it's pass-fail credit. The work in the field is pass-fail credit. The work in the class is graded, so you don't rack up too many ungraded credits, but you do have that possibility of pass-fail grading. That's probably my turn. I'm happy to answer any questions later.
Hey everybody, I'm here on behalf of the Pro Bono Initiative, which is a clinical program that rather than the longer semester type commitments, we just do short, sign up for the night, show up to the clinic, and work with low-income folks. And so the way it works is you sign up that week for a series of different clinics that we offer in different areas of practice and different areas of need. You sign up that week, show up that night, and you sit down with clients face-to-face, listen to their story, and then you relay that and boil it down to a legal issue for a panel of attorneys that we have every night. And you work with the attorneys to sort out the issue and produce a piece of advice or something like that for the client to help them out and get them moving along on their process. And the Pro Bono Initiative, it's cool. It's my favorite part of law school. But it's got sort of a three-pronged mission in doing these clinics. The first being skill building. Right in your second semester of your 1L year, you can take all the skills you've developed over that first semester here in the school and take it out into the community and engage those skills. And it's super satisfying. After a semester of just sitting in class, you can finally go out and see everything you've learned. And then after that is networking. The attorneys that come to these clinics and volunteer their time are largely Utah grads here, working in the city, hiring partners at firms, but they're selected because they're good attorneys to be spending time with you all. And so if you don't like traditional networking, you don't like going to the different sort of social events, we'll go to a pro bono clinic and work with a client and an attorney, and that's a much easier way to make connections actually practicing. And then lastly is professional responsibility. As attorneys and folks in the legal community, we have a lot of power to affect good for individuals. And the pro bono clinics are, one of the easiest ways to do that. You sign up that day, show up that night, and within hours you're helping actual clients with actual problems. And the benefits of participating in the pro bono clinics are pretty endless. I know tons of different folks who have gotten their jobs out of school through the connections they've made with attorneys at the pro bono clinics. And working in unfamiliar areas of law. In law school, you don't necessarily get your hands on every single different kind of practice field, but if you can sign up for the street law clinic one night doing employment and landlord-tenant issues, and then go to the veterans clinic the next night working with veterans issues, or to the expungement law clinic to go get your hands on some criminal law issues. It's an opportunity you wouldn't necessarily have otherwise. And at the end of your 3 years, if you do manage to get 50 hours of pro bono initiative service, you'll get a certificate on your, with your diploma signed by the president of the Utah Bar as well as the Chief Justice of the Utah Supreme Court. Yeah, we have all kinds of placements, like you heard about the street law clinic, which is sort of the miscellaneous clinic. You get landlord, tenant, employment, family law stuff. And then we have more specialized ones like a family law clinic or an immigration clinics in various locations. We also partner with different outreach groups with things like the Heartland Clinic doing citizenship test help. But yeah, so we have both the semester-long commitments, or if you're just looking to get into something for that night, you can sign up for a pro bono initiative clinic.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Louisa Heine. I'm one of the faculty members here. I'm the chair of the clerkship committee. And I think probably you're coming in perhaps with different levels of investigation into what's available on the post-grad market. So first, what is a clerkship? When I clerked, I told my mom I got a clerkship, and she said, oh, because she thought that meant I was going to be a secretary for a judge. So what is a clerkship? A clerkship is an opportunity to work full-time for a judge for between 1 and 2 years after graduation. It's one of the most prestigious things that you can do coming out of any law school experience, and it really sets you up for a couple of reasons. One is that it is unparalleled behind-the-scenes experience. And the other is you're getting linked in with a judge and a group of clerks who will really help be proponents for your future career. So I clerked for the federal trial court, for the chief judge of the federal trial court in Colorado. We have a clerkship committee here. Our motto is, there is a clerkship for everyone. So regardless of what your interest is, whether geographically or in terms of subject matter, or what kind of court you might qualify for, our job is to help you identify that and then to help you craft a law school experience that's going to make you an attractive candidate for those judges. So we place clerks at every level in almost every geographic region, although we are most heavily situated west of the Mississippi. So the Mountain West is where we primarily place clerks. The reason for that is that many of our graduates want to stay in Utah. So one of the things that we found creates an incredible pipeline, as Professor Smith said, is our clinical program. We place students with judges at every level, federal trial, federal appellate, state trial court, specialty courts like immigration courts, while they're in law school. And that's one of the things that our judges love to see on applications. So the clerkship committee is made up of 4 faculty members and 2 staff members. The faculty members have clerkship experience from federal trial to federal appellate to the Supreme Court of the United States and also the Supreme Court of Utah. We begin working with students after grades come out in January of the first year, and we continue to work with you all the way through the process. Courts hire when courts want to hire. So some of them are going to hire right after your 1L year, so we try to work with you early. Some of you will get clerkships even after you graduate, and so we continue to work with you after graduation. Also, some of our clerks then go on to do second clerkships, and we work with students to do that as well. I'm here to answer questions, but I'm also on the faculty website, so if you have any questions, you are always welcome to email me, and I hope to see you next year, where at some point in your 3 years, you will have me for something.
Okay.
I'm Jacqueline Howell Powers. I am the Associate Director of the Career Development Office. So all of you guys pretty much know what the Career Development Office is here to do, which is basically to help you guys find jobs, both during law school and after you graduate. So what we do is we work with you guys to really identify and define and then develop your career goals. And some of the ways in which we do that are through individualized one-on-one counseling. So you'll come in and meet with me or one of our fellow counselors. Right now it's me and me. We're going through some transitions in the office, but so if you have any questions after that, just send an email to me. But we do one-on-one individualized counseling, and we will sit down and kind of hash out why you came to law school, what your interests are. We'll talk about, you know, how to navigate your 1L and 2L summer, how to participate in things like on-campus interviewing. Another way that we help you guys prepare for your legal careers is we will go through your resumes and put your resumes into a legal format. We'll also help you with cover letters and determining which writing samples to use in your application. So all of that really fun, interesting stuff we are here to help you with. A second way that we help you is we will have a host of programming throughout the year. And so we do a lot of workshops during the week. A lot of these are geared towards practice areas to help you figure out what type of law you might be interested in. A lot of students come into our office and say, I'm here, I don't know what I want to do, don't ask me. So we'll just kind of go through, you know, various practice areas. I'll ask you what you think about your classes, what you're liking so far, and then we kind of start working from that baseline. We also host job fairs throughout the year. We host, like I said, on-campus interviews, recruiting opportunities throughout the year. We host what is called mock interviews once a year. So it's an opportunity before your spring OCI interviews, if you choose to participate in those, and other interviews in the spring once grades come out and you start applying for summer opportunities. You can kind of get experience in legal interviewing. So mock interviews are fun. A lot of 1Ls choose to do that. And then the other way that we help you is we connect you with members of the community. As Stephanie was talking about, and as you're going to hear a lot, you're going to hear this word called networking. And it's just going to be drilled into your brain and talked about ad nauseum. And one of the reasons that we do that is because it is so, so important. And so throughout your 3 years of law school, you'll be able to talk to attorneys with locally. If your plans are to leave the state, we'll help connect you with alums. We have a really robust mentor program where we'll connect you as early as your first year with a mentor who might be doing something that you find relatively interesting your 1L year. Like I said, some of you might be here planning to come to the College of Law. You know exactly what you want to do. And it's going to be the same the day you graduate as it was the minute you sat down with CDO your first year. Some of you are going to do a total 180. And so that is what we're really here to do, is help you kind of figure that all out and kind of help you navigate it. So anyways, I came prepared. I have stats. We can talk it all. I think my favorite part of our office is that we have this huge vat of candy for students. So students will come in, it's kind of a problem.
Yeah, it's right down the hall from my office.
We eat it a lot. And also we have endless amounts of Diet Coke. So, you know, a lot of students will come in and just hang out in the office, and it's really fun to get to know you all. But we're really excited for you. We hope to see you in the fall, and thanks for coming.
All right, so we'll begin with these questions. And for those of you who haven't used this kind of service before, the Slido, it's very much like social media. Anyone here who has never used social media for something? Okay, good. So then you know kind of like when you press like that it just kind of starts increasing numbers. So this functions very similarly in that as you're looking even at the questions that other people are submitting, when you press a like on that, it actually brings those questions up further. So it's not that I'm ignoring questions, it's just that because of that process, I will be fielding those questions that have more popularity first. And so, what are the clerkships? And as I say that, you're starting to shift these questions. Okay. For what areas of legal practice is clerkship experience most helpful and appropriate? For example, how might clerkships translate to a career in patent, health, and environmental law?
So there are some postgraduate plans that are really perfectly suited for clerkships. Things like a plan to go into litigation, a plan to go into appellate work. There are others that may or may not be a good use of your time, depending on what your long-term plans are. So if you wanted to do transactional work, I would not push you towards going to a trial court. I might instead suggest that we look at an appellate court, where they'll get appeals even on transactional kinds of cases. If you are interested in patent, there is one federal appellate court that gets the majority of patent appeals. We can talk about that as a possibility, but firms here have some definite ideas throughout Utah about whether a clerkship is a good thing. So some of our patent firms will say, if you're going to that federal appellate court, that's great. And if not, we would prefer you come directly to work for us. So one of our jobs is to work one-on-one with you and to determine, is a clerkship and the time that you're going to take for a clerkship going to get you the bounce that you want in terms of your long-term career plans? So for most people, the answer is yes. For many people, the answer is it depends on the clerkship. So if someone who, for instance, wants to practice immigration law, I'm not going to send you to the DC Circuit. That's not a good use of your time. But going through the DOJ honors program into an immigration court is a great use of your time. So we try to craft it depending on what you're interested in the long run.
I should also add that you can try out a judicial internship during law school and see whether this is something that you find engaging and enjoyable. And so it may not be something that and then you could make a decision about, I want to do a clerkship because this is just great. I'm working with a mentor, a very smart person. We're working on a team. It may be the only time that you get to be a judge, in the judge role in your life. And you'll be able to make that decision whether you love it or not while you're in law school.
All right, so are most of the opportunities for externships and post-graduation jobs in Salt Lake City, or does the JD from the University of Utah hold nationwide/worldwide value?
Read that again.
I know, it's a compound question. Basically, I think what they're trying to get to here is, one, does the our JD from the University of Utah hold any value outside Salt Lake City, outside of the state of Utah, into markets, into other state markets nationwide or worldwide, and also what kind of opportunities or externships post-graduation do we have outside the city?
So externships are not post-graduation.
Oh.
You could do a fellowship post-graduation, but that's really atypical. Usually after you've graduated, you take the bar.
But do we have
any
can you speak to any of the opportunities that we have for our current students outside of Utah?
Sure. In terms of the clinical program and getting credit for an experience during law school, if you come to us and you say, I really want to do an internship in Denver because that's where I want to settle, we'll work with you so you can do an internship in Denver. You can do it during the summer. That's not a big deal because you don't have to go to summer school. But I've had students do internships in Washington, D.C. during the fall or spring semester, in Denver during fall or spring semester. If you're interested in an international job, and there's a range of international jobs. So you can work with us and you'll do an internship internationally. There's a third-year student graduating who was in Jordan one year, and I can't remember what other Middle Eastern country it was the next year. We've had students graduate and go to the State Department as Foreign Service, into the Foreign Service, and they've done internships that are relevant to international internships before pursuing that career. So if you want to go someplace else, we can help you step in that direction as an intern. But I think the career service can as well. Getting a clerkship after your first or second year in the summer in your preferred city is a great way to get to that city as a paid employee later.
Absolutely.
Make it green. It's got to be green.
All right, absolutely.
There you go.
So it's a bit of a broad question because it really depends on what it is you're interested in. If you're talking about public interest, yes, there are fellowships after you graduate. There's a variety of fellowships. You can go through some of our students, if they want to go into government work, will go. We've had a couple successful applicants, candidates go through the Presidential Management Fellows Program that are working for federal government agencies after they graduate. We have, if you're interested in public interest, there's the Equal Justice Works Fellowship Program. There are fellowships across the country for students, or alums who are interested in a variety of different issues. So if there's something specific that you're passionate about, then that's something that we can kind of sit down and discuss the various fellowships that might be available after you graduate. Again, what Linda was saying, doing something during your summer that indicates that you might have an interest in public interest, or you might be interested in government work of some kind, will really help you kind of gear up for postgraduate positions. But again, it's a little broad. We kind of just need to sit down and talk about it.
Definitely. How far does our alumni network start?
Oh, yeah. So we have alums all over the country. We have a presence in all of the major cities. We have a lot of, our presence is obviously here, but we have groups of alums in Texas and New York, and we have alums in California and Seattle, and I mean, that's a hard one. I don't have the list in front of me, but we have alums across the country, and plenty of people that we can connect you with in order to make some job connections in other areas outside of just Utah. Yeah.
So I'm not sure where on our website, but Lori Nelson, who's our Director of Alumni Relations, has put together a state-by-state search for our alums. So if you really want to work after graduation in a particular area, go look at it and see who we've got already there to help create that pipeline for you.
Right, and I mean, I will say, in a nutshell, we have opportunities for you as a student in the state, outside the state, internationally. In terms of employment, your JD will hold, not just in Utah, it will hold outside of the state, nationwide, and across the world. I say that because there is a misnomer and I think a misunderstanding that there are some law schools where they attract almost, I would say, 70% of their student body comes from outside the state, and so they go out and they spread out all across the United States because they're going back home, right? Most of the students. And so our student body, a lot of them, yes, they are from Utah, and oftentimes they want to stay here. And what's funny is that even the people who are not from here, they end up wanting to stay here at the end of the day. And oftentimes it's because, our career development office, and with our externship opportunities and our clerkship opportunities, they've been able to create networking opportunities, very, very solid networking opportunities here, and are able to establish work opportunities here. I mean, you heard Dean Adler indicate earlier that 98% of our last graduating class was able to secure employment within the 10-month American Bar Association required measure, right? So I think in a nutshell, that's what we're trying to get at, and I hope that answered the question. And so this is something that was asked earlier today. Is it realistic to anticipate a 40-hour per week commitment as a first-year student? And I'm guessing they're referring to really how much time investment are they can anticipate to have as a student their first year.
I'll tell you what the ABA says. The ABA says for every 1 hour in class, you should be studying 2 to 3 hours outside of class. During the school year, that's in the first year, students do that. They stop doing that after the first year. This is the same thing undergraduate. Ask the data, the undergraduate University of Utah. It's maybe 1 to 1. It's not 1 to 3. It ought to be 1 to 3. So you do the math, right? If you're taking 15 credits and you're studying 3 hours for each of your credits, that's more than a 40-hour week of study. But if you're studying 2 hours for every credit, that's 45 hours. That's what I think most people would expect doing in their first year. Many people their first year, if they don't have other commitments, they don't have a part-time job, they don't have a family that needs a lot of attending, they'll study more because they're revved up to study and they're studying with study buddies, and it's exciting to be, learn all these new legal terms and go around using tort and I tort you, and all your relatives hate to listen to you talk because you're all talking law mumbo jumbo, and so you spend all this time studying in your first year. But we've had students come to law school with large families and with other employment, and they do fine. I remember some years ago, was a woman, she wasn't older, she just was old enough to have had 5 children. And they decided, the youngest one was in kindergarten, and it was time for mom to go to law school, and she had organized who was going to do the laundry and who was going to help fix dinner, and they had a whole team approach to the family. So she did excellent as a law student and made certain adjustments in terms of, mom wasn't taking care of everything anymore. Children were learning some responsibility. So it's very typical for our students to have family responsibilities and other jobs. It's not recommended to have another job your first year, but some people do. Most people have part-time jobs during their second and third year and manage to, have a livable life. Student, you might want to testify on this one.
Yes. I was 1L not that long ago. And yeah, as Professor Smith says, it's just extremely personal. Everybody works differently. And that reading assignment you get the first week that takes you an hour and a half may very well take you 20 or 30 minutes by the end of the year. And so as you get going, you just sort of get used to the process and learn what's going to work for you, when you want to show up, when you want to go home. And you'll see everybody does it differently. So I wouldn't worry too much about the hour commitment because it will change every day and every week.
I mean, it's going to vary, honestly. I don't think it matters where you go. You will have a large time commitment. It's just the part, that's just being in law school generally. But what I can say is that you're going to be in an environment here where we are collegial, we are a small school by intent, and so you'll be in a small community where you're going to be able to lean on your classmates, hopefully. Dean Dickey does say, who's the Dean of Student Services, if by the first week you haven't identified the jerk in the class, it's probably you. I don't know that I echo those ideals or that thought, but that is all just to say that we all get to know each other. You have a strong support system, not just in the faculty and the staff. You're going to find that within your student community as well. So there are a lot of questions regarding international opportunities out, so if you can speak as to experiences that we can offer to students internationally, both for externships while they're students outside the country, as well as maybe some job descriptions that we've been able to help some postgrads or graduates or students who have graduated.
So I actually sat down with CDO in my first couple weeks of being here, looking for international opportunities, Jess Hoffberger over there, and he gave me a list of just dozens of firms in Mexico and South America where we had alumni. Had me on track to take the Foreign Service Officer test, which I just did this past October. Connected me with a Foreign Service Officer we had living in the Vatican right now, I believe.
Jay?
Yeah, Jay. And I just came off of our international law moot court competition, which was super cool. It's coached by Amos Giora, who spends half of his year in Israel working with the IDF and half of his year here working with us. And Tony Ongi, who is a leading global scholar in third world approaches to international law. So just from a personal perspective, not only is it pretty easy to get out of Utah, it's pretty easy to get out of the States from within this university.
You sort of have to, international is a broad word. And in terms of thinking about a career, you need to say, what is it about international that I want, okay? So is it that you just want to live in another country? Okay, you're going to get an American law degree. What firm in what other country where you speak the language wants to hire an American lawyer? That's, that's your challenge. Or is it that you want to do governmental stuff, in which case, the State Department Foreign Service officer is an excellent career track. Or is it that you're concerned about international human rights or some other NGO issues, in which case you're really interested in public service NGO issues that may or may not be international. I mean, if you're doing humanitarian law, you could do that nationally or internationally. And so there are various different things you would do depending on what it is that you like about international. I'll tell you about one of our supervisors in the civil clinic who's a legal services attorney. When he graduated from law school many years ago, like he's my age, he wanted to do international law, and he went to a New York law firm and did international law. And he discovered the international law he was doing was defending cigarette companies who were selling cigarettes in the United States. And he said, this is not what I was thinking about when I wanted to do international law. And he thought back to his undergraduate experience where he did a semester abroad in Mexico, and it was like a work semester where he was doing service. And he said, well, I now realized what I wanted wasn't international. What I wanted was service. That I wanted to be in a situation where I was serving people and I felt good about the law I was doing. And so now he's the guy doing consumer protection and public benefits law at Utah Legal Services, and he's been doing that for over 35 years. So, you've got to analyze what it is that you're looking for when you talk about, career tracks. And I will say the best way to figure it out is to do a lot of clinical internships, because as you thought you wanted to do criminal law, and then you went and you did some work in the victims clinic or with the Innocence Project, or and you're going, I don't like the pace of this. This is too fast paced. You have to be ready to be on your feet at a moment's notice. And I'm a planned, organized, blah, blah, blah kind of person. And so you might want to shift and say, well, I don't think the pace of criminal law is for me. Maybe what I'm looking for is an appellate practice where I could do appellate criminal law, which is very slow and careful and thorough, and your personality is going to be happier there. So until you start having experiences in different legal settings, it's going to be hard for you to glom on to, this is perfect for me. And by the way, there's no one job that's perfect for you. There's lots of jobs that are perfect for you. I've had a couple perfect jobs in my life. So, exploring what it is about a job that's going to make you satisfied and productive.
I just want to add one thing. Many of our incoming students come with language skills. Many of you are fluent in at least one other language, sometimes more than that. So that brings with it a range of opportunities. And that's one of the things that we talk about when we try to find a clerkship that's a good match for you. Sometimes what students want, as Professor Smith said, is to just get out of the continental United States, right? So we have clerkships that are in American commonwealths and American territories, but they get you out of Utah. So for example, we have a student next year who's going to Puerto Rico as part of the Department of the Interior Honors Program to go be in one of the offices there, kind of the equivalent of an honors clerkship. He came with full fluency in Spanish, so that was an opportunity for him. We have a clerk right now who's in American Samoa. Did he have family connections there? I can't remember. But we have other folks who have family connections in territories and commonwealths. So if you have those language skills, there are some ways we can make use of that.
Okay, and I'm just gonna take this last question because we, as you've noted, are running late and I don't want to push your mock law class too late. So this will be the last question I submit to the panel. What are, since you're on the topic of clerkships, what are the clerkship statistics for University of Utah grads? And how many people from our latest class, so class of 2018, are taking clerkships and where?
Objection, compound question. Okay, so as Isabel noted, we're a small school. So there are a couple different ways that you can slice the numbers. One is to look at total number of clerkships. The other is to look at percentage of clerkships compared to the number of graduates. And a third way is to look at percentage of graduates who wanted a clerkship and were able to secure a clerkship. So a couple different ways you can look at it. Over the last 5 years, our clerkship numbers have ranged from 10% of the graduating class to 20% of the graduating class. Most of our students who want a clerkship are able to secure a clerkship. Sometimes you have to scrap a little bit in order to make that happen. Most of our students who want 2 clerkships are able, once we get them in that first clerkship, to then do a follow-up, what we would call a stepping stone clerkship. Right now, this year, 13 out of the 14 clerks at the Utah Court of Appeals are our graduates. We're putting people next year. See, I didn't bring my list of stats like Jacqueline did. We're putting people next year into the federal courts, state Supreme Court, state Court of Appeals, trial courts, and immigration court. But I'm doing that off the top of my head. Okay. Did I leave anything off? Feel free to email me if there's a particular circuit, a particular court you're interested in, and I'm more than happy to talk to you about whether we have a pipeline into that court, and if so, what the kinds of qualifications are that those judges are generally attracted to.
Well, and one thing I want to mention too is because I think here is also an area where there's a lot of misunderstanding, and I think in part it's because there is a lot of prestige in participating in a clerkship opportunity after you graduate, and of course I definitely fully encourage those who have an interest in pursuing that to give it give it a go. But I do want to point out that there are some students who have no interest in that. So the numbers themselves don't reflect the quality of our program. Even if they were like overly, if we had tons of like 90% of our student body in a clerkship, that does not necessarily reflect on the school. And I can tell you because it's not just, it's not just the school. Does the student have an interest? And luckily, a lot of our students, some do have, some don't, and that's okay. So just be aware of that. But with that, we will close this session. I will save some of these questions. Hopefully Sam can help me save some of these questions, and maybe we can just send you like an FAQ with the responses to some of these. But most of these we can get get these answered throughout the day. So feel free to approach me or any of our staff. They will no longer be here. But if you can help me, just thank our panel today. And a few of our staff members are just right outside this door, so they will escort you down to the 3rd floor. There is a restroom. There are restrooms down there, and then they'll lead you into class. So we'll start that, within the next 10 minutes or so. So don't rush out.